Imagine that we are on the verge of a revolution that will change the way we think about food forever. Markets are overcrowded, farms are exhausted, and our planet is tired of the way we feed it. The meat we eat every day is no longer just food. It's a burden on nature, on animals, on ourselves. And then an idea that sounded almost like science fiction emerged. What if we could create meat without slaughter, without suffering, without destroying the environment? It all started with a few people in labs looking at old animal farming systems and thinking, we can do this differently. They started experimenting, growing cells in petri dishes, turning protein into something that resembled real meat, but didn't cost lives. Many people laughed at them, saying it was impossible, that the taste would never be natural, that the world wouldn't change that quickly. But they didn't give up. Every failed attempt, every failure, every bottle of plant-based protein that didn't hold together were steps toward a breakthrough. They believed that change was possible, and that belief was contagious. It seemed like a future where we could eat ethically, deliciously, and without harming the planet was starting to come to life right in their hands. And this is where our story begins, a story of science, courage, and a revolution that could change the way we live, breathe, and eat. This isn't just food. This is a chance to create a new world. The first steps in this revolution were more complicated than anyone could have imagined. Laboratories became places where science met magic. Small cells placed in petri dishes were slowly transformed into something that could resemble real meat. But it was far from ideal. The texture was strange, the taste often left much to be desired, and the cost of a single piece could be comparable to an expensive dinner at a restaurant. Many doubted. Investors refused to believe, critics laughed, and traditional farmers looked on with suspicion. This will never become widespread, they said. And even among the inventors themselves, there were moments when it seemed that everything was in vain. But the first tastings caused real enthusiasm. The daredevils who tried artificial meat felt for the first time that what had previously seemed like fantasy was possible. Every failure taught them something new. Every mistake was a step towards a taste, a texture, a flavor that could rival real meat. Here was born a belief that changed everything. The belief that food could be created in a new way, without cruelty or harm to the planet. These were times of discovery, risk, and small victories that no one noticed outside the lab. But those who were there knew that this was where a revolution began that would later change the culinary world forever. The breakthrough came where it was least expected. What began as experiments in sterile laboratories one day ended up on the plates of ordinary people. The first commercial products hit the market, plant-based burgers that looked, smelled, and even sizzled in the pan like real meat. It was a moment that silenced skeptics and raised eyebrows in wonderment for millions of people around the world. Restaurants began adding alternative dishes to their menus. Coffee shops introduced plant-based milk, which became a regular part of morning coffee. Startups that were fighting for every cent yesterday were now receiving millions in investments from giants like Google or Bill Gates. Everyone felt that something grand was happening. A revolution had begun, changing not only cooking, but also the very philosophy of consumption. The first tasters were amazed. They tried the fake burger and said, "I can't taste the difference anymore." This was the key moment. Once people realized they could get the taste of meat without the sacrifice, the old arguments about naturalness began to lose their power. The idea gained mass publicity. Social media exploded with posts, and videos of reactions to the new products garnered millions of views. The revolution that was born in the silence of laboratories broke out on the streets of cities, in cafes, in supermarkets. And that was just the beginning. But no revolution goes without resistance. And as the meat alternative began to gain momentum, it was met with a wave of criticism and attacks. Large agribusiness corporations, which had made billions from traditional animal husbandry for decades, sensed the danger. They launched campaigns to try to stop this movement. It's unnatural, it's dangerous, it's an experiment on humans. Lobbyists pressured politicians, farmers protested, and advertising from established brands became more aggressive than ever. But the resistance was not only economic. It was a challenge to culture. For millions of people, meat is a tradition, a family dinner, a religious ritual, a symbol of abundance. And now someone was saying that all this needed to change. It is not surprising that there were heated debates in society. Is this meat at all? Will this destroy traditions? Are we ready to accept a new food? Skeptics tried alternative products and said, no, it's not the same. But over time, the taste improved, the technology improved, and most importantly, the arguments were too convincing. Each new scientific report proved alternatives save water, reduce emissions, reduce damage to the planet. And where doubts were loud, the facts gradually became even louder. Yes, the revolution ran into a wall of resistance. But it was this wall that made the movement stronger. Because each attack forced inventors to improve the product, defend the idea, fight for each new consumer. And gradually this resistance began to crack. People saw, the future is already here, and it cannot be stopped. When the initial controversy subsided and technology improved, the real miracle began, scaling. What was just yesterday exotic for the rich or brave experimenters gradually turned into a familiar part of life. At first, there were only a few cafes in San Francisco or Berlin where you could order a meatless burger that tasted like the real thing. But a few years passed, and these products began to appear on the menus of large fast food chains, in schools, and in supermarkets. The price, which was once unaffordable, began to fall rapidly. If the first artificial burger cost over $300,000, now its price has become affordable for the average buyer. Innovations in production, mass attraction of investors, and competition between companies have made what until recently seemed like a fairy tale. Alternative food has become a mass product. And most importantly, it was not only for vegans or environmental activists. It began to be ordered by those who previously could not imagine their life without meat. People from different countries, different cultures discovered a new world of taste and possibilities. Big fast food chains introduced alternative burgers to their main menu. Coffee shops started offering plant-based milk at no extra charge because it had become so popular that it was no longer considered an option for the elite. Even school cafeterias started offering plant-based protein dishes so that children would understand from an early age that there was another way. It was like a wave that started quietly but gradually swept the world. And at the same time, the first major results began to be felt. Studies have shown that the production of alternative meat reduces greenhouse gas emissions by several times, uses hundreds of times less water and land. For a planet suffering from global warming, it was a breath of fresh air. For people who had seen disasters and forest fires, it was a chance to stop the destruction. Countries have begun to join the movement. Singapore has allowed the sale of lab-grown meat for the first time. Europe has begun serious discussions about regulation. The US has invested in dozens of startups, and China, the world's largest meat consumer, has announced plans to gradually switch to alternative proteins. This has become more than just a culinary novelty. It has become a global strategy. But the most interesting thing happened at the level of people. Imagine an ordinary family that one day buys frozen vegetable protein patties. They cook them at home, try them, and realize that they are delicious. And this changes their attitude towards food, towards their own choices, towards the future. Such small decisions in millions of homes have added up to a great story of global change. What seemed impossible 10 years ago has become a reality. Alternative food is no longer a novelty. It has become a symbol of a new culture, a culture of conscious choice, care for nature, and a willingness to live differently. It was not just a product. It was an idea that touched the heart of everyone who thought about the future of their children. The world was entering a new era of nutrition, and we were all becoming part of it, even if we were just ordering a coffee with oat milk at the nearest coffee shop. Because each such choice was a small step in a great revolution that was already changing the world. Imagine the world in 20 or 30 years. We walk into a supermarket and there are shelves lined with traditional products, with lab-grown meat, 3D printed fish, milk without cows, and eggs without chickens. This is no longer fantasy. This is the future that is being created before our eyes today. Cellular meat technologies are developing at a breakneck pace. If scientists once grew a few grams of protein in a petri dish, now they are building huge bioreactors capable of producing tons of meat without any animal slaughter. These are real farms of the future, where instead of cows or pigs, machines and cells multiply in controlled conditions work. The taste is becoming more and more perfect. The texture is almost indistinguishable from natural, and the possibilities are endless. You can create meat that has never existed in nature, combining structures and flavors. New technologies are also entering the process, such as 3D printing. Imagine loading a recipe into a special machine and it prints a steak for you with the perfect level of doneness and marbling. No waste, no compromise. It's already a reality in some labs, and very soon it will be available in restaurants and even at home. But it's not just about taste. The future of alternative food is a matter of human survival. The planet's population is growing rapidly, resources are depleting, and old production methods simply cannot withstand this load. Livestock farming today takes up most of the arable land and huge volumes of water, while creating more emissions than transportation. If we don't change our approach, crises are inevitable. Alternative food is becoming the very lifeline that can give us a chance to feed 10 billion people without destroying the planet. In the future, it won't just be about meat or milk. We'll see new types of proteins, algae, insects, mycoproteins, synthetic sources of nutrients. They'll become part of our daily diet, even if we don't notice it. They'll be in bars, sauces, baby food, everything, to make food affordable, nutritious, and clean. And most importantly, our attitudes will change. What once seemed unnatural or weird will become the norm. Children who are now trying their first plant-based burgers at school will grow up to no longer know a world where animals must be slaughtered for meat. For them, artificial will be synonymous with modern, responsible, and better. This is a cultural shift that may be even more important than the technology itself. And the future of alternative food opens the door to new dreams. Space travel, the colonization of Mars. All these scenarios are impossible without food that can be created independently of natural conditions. It is laboratory-grown meat and protein technologies that can become the basis of nutrition for the first astronauts who will leave Earth forever. It turns out that this revolution concerns not only our daily lives, it concerns the very future of humanity as a species. So when we look ahead, we don't just see new products on the shelf. We see a new civilization learning to live differently without destroying its future for the sake of the present. The alternative food revolution is not about giving up taste or joy. It's about the chance to leave behind a world that has room for everyone. People, animals, and nature. We used to think that food is something simple, everyday. But in fact, it shapes our cultures, our relationship with the planet, and our future. And today we stand on the threshold of changes that are no longer stoppable. Because the revolution has begun. And now there is only one question. Are we ready to embrace it and become part of the new history of food? We always thought that food was just a necessity, something habitual, a part of our daily lives. But now we understand. Food is a force that can change the whole world. Every piece, every sip is a choice that determines not only our health, but also the future of the planet. The alternative food revolution has shown us that we can do things differently. We can preserve tradition while building a new culture. We can enjoy taste without harm. We can feed billions without depleting the earth. And most importantly, we can create a world where ethics and science work together to give us more freedom, not constraints. This is not just a story about meat or milk. This is a story about humanity learning to look beyond our plates. And now we have a chance to leave our children not a depleted planet, but a place full of opportunity. The revolution has already begun. It's not somewhere in the future. It's here, in every oat milk coffee, in every meatless burger, in every small decision we make every day. And the question is not whether it will win. The question is whether we are ready to be a part of it. Because the truth is simple. We decide what tomorrow's food will be like. And more depends on this decision than we can imagine.